When you've dug yourself into a deep hole of stupid, the last thing you should do is hire an excavator and keep digging. But then we are talking about someone who has already won DFOTY. First of all, quick thanks to my amazing patrons. I want to give massive thanks to all of my supporting members and patrons. Thank you all so very much. Well, I'm sure you all already know who tonight's subject is. That's right, it's that smeg-headed gimboid, Mr. Anthony Riley, the very same Anthony Riley who produced a thesis on which colour crayon tastes the best. So Mr. Anthony Riley is going to show us why Newton and Einstein have absolutely nothing on him. So go ahead, Mr. Riley, do your worst and tell us all about it.
Okay, quick video for you today to demonstrate an equivalence principle. A bit like Einstein, we all know that gravity is not a force but merely an effect. It doesn't act on matter, it cannot cause anything to accelerate.
I'm afraid it does though, Tony, me old China, because on Earth it accelerates at 9.8 meters per second, and even on the quote you've got on the screen in front of you, it talks about all things in the universe being brought towards each other. If they're moving towards each other because of gravity, that's acceleration.
And even when Fight the Flat Earth got George Musa on his channel to correct him on whether or not gravity pulls on things, he didn't even realise that it wasn't pulling on things because George was so polite in explaining to him that he was wrong.
I believe he said gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. You can treat it as such, Tony.
Fight the Flat Earth thought that he was correct and therefore supporting him. Today I'm going to give you an example of an equivalence principle where ball earthers, because they refuse to accept that gravity is not a force...
No, Tony, we're happy to accept it's not a force, but you can treat it as a force. You can plug it into equations and get answers that work.
I'm going to give you an equivalence principle where I'm going to demonstrate an equivalence. Ball earthers that refuse to accept that gravity is not a force are no different to the people that are eating stir-strömming.
What you talking about, Willis?
Stir-strömming is a lightly salted fermented Baltic Sea herring, traditional to Swedish cuisine.
So you've had enough of eggs, and now you're going to have a go at the fish? He's taking the piss scheme.
And what it says is during the production of stir-strömming, just enough salt is used to prevent the raw herring from rotting whilst allowing it to ferment.
Sounds like your egg experiment, Anthony. Adding just enough salt to stop your relative density disequilibrium theory from rotting.
Now, a fermentation process of at least 6 months gives the fish its characteristic strong smell and somewhat acidic taste.
A strong smell and acidic taste? Yep, that's relative density disequilibrium for you.
According to a Japanese study, a newly opened can of stir-strömming has one of the most putrid food smells in the world, even stronger than similarly fermented fish dishes such as the Korean, whatever that is, or the Japanese kusaya, whatever that is. In the same way that gravity is not a force, we want to focus on one of the most putrid food smells, because if we apply the principle that Blurthers do, where it says it's not a force, that would mean that this isn't really that putrid at all.
So let me get this right, Tony. You're going to try and defend relative density disequilibrium and prove that gravity is not a force by looking at some fermented herring.
But this is one of the most putrid ones, but it's not the worst, so we can consider it to be reasonable. Until we see somebody actually dealing with it and trying to address it. So let's watch a clip of a father with his 2 children whilst he opens a freshly opened tin of stir-strömming, and remind ourselves that because it is one of the most putrid food smells, that is the equivalence with gravity not being a force, so therefore this man's reaction is an equivalent reaction to the Blurthers refusing to acknowledge that gravity is not a force but an effect.
Tony, this must be the weakest argument that I've come across since Why You Are an Idiot put forward his theory that the craters on the moon were caused by a giant wolf jumping up and chewing it.
So all the way through this next video, Please consider the effect of the blurthers where they refuse to accept gravity is an effect that is synonymous with the eating of a freshly opened stir-strömming. Enjoy.
Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal. Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal.
No, I don't.
Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal. Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal. Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal.
Tony, I think there's been a bit of an error. I've just checked with Holly, and Holly says that surströmming is actually Swedish for relative density disequilibrium, and that guy just can't swallow it.
I can't do it.
So as we can see there, the guy couldn't do it, and I know there might have been a little bit of exaggeration there.
What, like being sure that they'll soon be teaching flat earth in schools, Tony?
But the next time that a blurther demonstrates or refuses to accept that Einstein says that gravity is not a force, to demonstrate the equivalence principle, if he's going to say that it's, or pretend that it's an effect that acts like a force or is an apparent force or whatever, what is it, an entropic force or whatever force that you want to ascribe to it instead.
Gravity is most accurately described by the general theory of relativity proposed by Einstein, which describes gravity not as a force. But what does it say later on in the very same page you're using as evidence? However, for most applications, gravity is well approximated by Newton's law of universal gravitation, which describes gravity as a force. Tony, what a total fail! Well, after that sweet kicking of Flurf butt, I'm feeling hungry. I wonder what's for lunch.
Fish! Today's fish is trout a la creme. Enjoy your meal.
I will.
Smoke me a kipper. I'll be back for breakfast.
Shut up and sit down.